It's Saturday, December 29th, 2018, and in my last video I said I would try to make another video before the end of the year, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. Whereas a lot of people slow down this time of year, unfortunately in the dental industry this is the busiest time of year. So today we're going to go back to a video that I published a little bit over 2 years ago, and that is of the Mustang piston popper that you see here. This is actually the first MATCHBOX restoration / custom that we did on the channel. And with that video there was no talking, there was no voiceover, no instruction whatsoever. So we're going to take a look at where it is now, and we'll post the original video here with voiceover so I can explain a few things. So first things first, after being played with for a little over 2 years, the popping mechanism doesn't quite work as well as it did in the video. Also, one of the keepers for the wheels happens to be missing. But really that's a pretty easy fix. So we're going to have a closer look at the car so we can assess the damage. So taking a closer look at the car, we can see it's in relatively good shape. You also have to consider this was given to my grandson when he was 3. He's now 5. So it's lasted from 3 to 5 years of age with just a wheel issue. Other small issues, there is a chip on the roof as well as a little divot there. We've got a chip right here. And then we have one right here, and then there are a few on the door lines. Oddly enough, the actual base has no chipping. There's still paint on the taillights, as well as the headlights and turn signals, which is quite amazing. And as far as the crack on the windshield, that was on the car originally. And there is one other piece of damage. It's around the actual motor. And that is actually my fault, and we're going to go over that during the voiceover. Also, surprisingly enough, the wheels still retain the little pins on them that allow the piston popper to actually work. I assume it's not popping just because of debris or something else that's inside of that mechanism. And we could take a look at that later. But for now, this is just kind of a throwback to where they are now. So now we're going to take a look at the original video with the customization so I can explain to you exactly what we're doing. So now it's time to begin. Here is the piston popper as I received it, original condition. I did not pay anything for this, but I don't recall where I received it from. It may have been through a relative, a friend, what have you. But I decided it was time to customize it. So we're going to drill out the rivets. This car happens to have 3 posts, so that means we have to drill and tap 3 times. Once we get it apart, we'll go ahead and take out the interior as well as the piston popper mechanism and the glass. And we fit it back together to make sure it actually works, and it does. After we've determined everything is working correctly, we're going to go ahead and strip the body of its paint. We are just using the citrus strip. We spray it on, wait a couple minutes, and then brush it off. As you can see, safety was obviously very important to me in this video. Notice the absence of gloves. Not sure what I was thinking. But there is one thing I did forget to do, aside from the gloves. If you'll notice, the surround that surrounds the motor and the piston popper, I forgot to take that off. And it is actually made of plastic. So it ended up melting that material, as you see there. Did not realize this until after the fact. So at this point, I still have not realized my error, so I just go ahead and start drilling and tapping for the post. Again, there are 3. So we'll make 3 .050 holes, and then once we're done with those, we'll tap each of those holes. Once we're done with drilling those holes, we're going to go ahead and tap with the 256 tap, and then we're going to dry fit and try out each of our 256 button head screws. And here we're just using the black 256 button head screws. They are magnetic, and also we end up painting the base black so they'll match perfectly. And this is when I realize, finally, that I melted that plastic around the motor. So I start trimming it with a X-Acto, and then I move to the grinder. When that's not doing well enough, I decide to go ahead and drill out the post in order to remove the piece. For now, we'll set it aside and move on to the wheels. Now this is an important part of this vehicle because the front wheels actually make the piston popper portion of the car work. We're going to go ahead and cut the axles and then remove each of the wheels. We're going to replace them with these rubber wheels that are found on, I believe, one of the Hot Wheels adult customs. We're going to simply flip the rubber around because we do not want the white wall showing. Once we create the custom axles, we'll go ahead and test fit them into the base of the car. This car features a suspension style base, which means it's just a piece of plastic that allows the wheels to move up and down. And now they spin freely. I'm going to paint the base with some Testors enamel paint. This is straight from the bottle with a brush. A few things to note: I did not clean nor did I prime this base. The odd thing about this is if you saw from the beginning of the video, after over 2 years of playtime, there's no scratches. It's kind of amazing to me because if I would have taken the time to prime this, do all that work, I guarantee you there would be a scrape on it. But for this one, we are still good to go. We also paint the tail lights and the turn signals on the base of the car. They are part of the base, not part of the body. And the interior gets the same black paint treatment, just Testors enamel. We go from red to black. Now this is before I started using an airbrush, so we're just going to use some duplicolor spray paint. This is perfect match. I like the color, so that's what we went with. Now here are the modified wheels. You'll notice they're a rubber tire, but there is a peg on them. This is what allows the motor to piston pop. So we're going to take one of the original front wheels and cut about 1/16 of an inch off the inside that has that peg on there. Once we get it cut off, we'll sand it down as flat as we can get it. We're just using a file. And then after that's done, we'll glue it onto the inside of our new wheel and tire. Essentially, this is glued to the rubber portion of the tire. We just use some Tamiya CA, set it in place, and let it dry. Now once we've let that ring dry enough, we're going to go ahead and take it back to our file and file down any portions of the actual ring that are exposed above the tire. That way it will roll smoothly like a Matchbox or Hot Wheels should. Now here is that portion that was around the engine. I end up just filing it as flat as I can get it. And then afterwards we paint it black. I wish I would have noticed that originally. We could have skipped that step completely. Now it's time for reassembly. We start with the glass. Then we put the piston popper portion of the engine in place. We're going to go ahead and glue that since we've already mangled it for the most part. And then we'll go ahead and slip in our interior, then our base, and we'll button it up with our 256 button head screws. And with that, we are complete. And at this point, the piston popper mechanism works flawless. I'm not sure where or when it stopped working in the 2+ years, but in the video and shortly after it was working fine. Obviously it doesn't work today. And here is the completed product. Not a whole lot different than it looks from today. There are a few scrapes and bruises on it, but for the most part, it looks very much as it did over 2 years ago. Certainly not the greatest, but again, this is one of my first customs. I'm essentially learning as I go, just like everybody else. I either learn from trial and error or from subscribers or comments. Initially, I didn't put a lot of time or effort into these customs or restorations because they were for a 5-year-old. But the viewers and subscribers have spoken, and since this time, I've been putting more effort into each and every video. Hopefully it shows in the end result. I'd like to take this time to thank my top patrons, which are Corbin Toll, Gary Burke, and Mark Kidd. And a big thanks to everyone that subscribes to the channel. I really appreciate it. If you see any of the tools that I used in this video that you'd like to purchase for yourself, be sure to check out the links. They're located below the video in the description. I have Amazon links to just about everything we use. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post those below. And as always, thanks for watching.